The colony burned in silence. The stars above were calm, endless and bright, but below them the human settlement was nothing but fire and broken stone. Towers that once held laughter now crumbled into dust. The air was filled with smoke and ash, and the ground shook under the weight of alien weapons. The attackers came without warning, without reason. They did not ask for surrender. They did not speak. They only destroyed. Children had run into shelters. Families tried to hold on to one another, but there was no escape from the fire that fell from the sky. Whole streets turned into rivers of flame. The screams of the colony rose high, then fell quiet, one after another, until only the roar of destruction remained. Hidden in the ruins, a girl no older than 12 pressed her small body under a broken wall. Her eyes were wide with fear, but she did not close them. She watched. She saw the sky filled with burning ships, their alien designs sharp and cruel, like blades cutting through the dark. She saw the homes of her people vanish in seconds. She saw the end of everything she had ever known, but she also saw something else. A small beacon, a silver cylinder no larger than her arm, pushed out from the rubble by a dying man. He had no strength left, but his hand pressed the beacon until it glowed red. It blinked once, then shot into the sky like a streak of light. The signal was gone in seconds, racing through the void, carrying one message: humanity is under attack. The girl bit her lip until it bled. She knew no one would come in time to save them. But maybe, just maybe, someone would know what happened here. The aliens gave no mercy. Their ships rained down energy that cracked the surface of the colony world. Forests turned to black ash. Rivers boiled. The very earth split open. In less than one night, a thriving city of humans was erased, leaving only smoke and silence. When the last alien ship turned away, leaving nothing alive, the stars looked cold. The galaxy believed this colony was gone, forgotten. Just another broken rock in the endless void. But on Earth, far away, silence turned to fire. In a deep chamber under the capital, leaders of humanity sat around a long table. The beacon signal had arrived. The projection showed the destruction, the flames, the dead faces of their people. No one spoke for a long time. Every face was hard, every eye filled with rage. One of the generals, old and scarred, finally broke the silence. His voice was steady, almost too calm. "They think we will bow," he said. "They think humans are too small, too weak, too young to answer." A woman across from him shook her head. "They think wrong." The room filled with low voices, but no one argued. Everyone knew what had to be done. Humanity had been tested before. They had survived plague, war, and the long black years when Earth itself nearly collapsed. And each time, they had risen stronger. Now, with the galaxy watching, humanity would rise again. In the shipyards, deep under oceans and high above planets, engines roared to life. For years, the blueprints had been ready. For years, humanity had prepared in silence, building something no other race believed possible. They had been patient, they had been quiet, and they had been underestimated. The order was spoken: send the dreadnoughts. Across Earth's colonies, men and women stopped what they were doing. They looked up at the sky, at the empty stars. They remembered the colony that had just been burned, the children who would never grow, the families who would never return home. And they swore that the galaxy would pay. The girl who survived in the ruins would never know her beacon had reached Earth. She would never know the storm she had awakened. She only sat alone among the ashes, staring at the horizon where the alien ships had vanished. Her heart burned with questions she could not answer. Why them? Why here? Why her people? But humanity already had an answer, and it was not made of words. It was made of steel. It was made of fire. It was made of ships the size of cities, waiting in silence for the command to move, and when they moved, the stars themselves would tremble. The galaxy thought humans would cry. The galaxy thought humans would beg. But humanity did not beg. Humanity did not cry. Humanity built. Humanity prepared. And humanity was coming. The message of the destroyed colony spread fast. Across human space, whispers turned into anger, and anger turned into fire. The galaxy thought humanity would mourn in silence. Instead, humanity prepared. In the great shipyards, the first lights came alive. Dock workers who had spent years in secret projects were suddenly called into action. Massive engines larger than houses were pulled out from hidden vaults. Skeletons of warships that had waited in silence were covered with steel armor, weapons and shields. Every corner of humanity's reach began to change. Miners on the frozen moons stopped digging and started smelting ore for weapons. Farmers gave their harvest to feed soldiers. Scientists left their labs to work on reactors that could power ships for centuries. Even children, too young to fight, carried supplies to the factories. The colony that had burned was not forgotten. It became a fire inside every human heart. In the skies above Earth, a shadow grew. A single dreadnought floated out of the shipyard, still incomplete, but already larger than any alien battleship. It moved slowly, like a mountain drifting across the heavens. People stopped in the streets to look up. For many, it was the first time they had seen what humanity had been building in secret. The governments of alien empires laughed when they first heard the rumor. 500,000 dreadnoughts? Impossible, they said. No race could create such a fleet. The cost alone would crush a civilization. The labor would take centuries. It was madness, but scouts began to disappear. The ones who returned told stories of endless shipyards, of thousands of warships lined in neat rows, of engines that shook entire planets when they started. They spoke of dreadnoughts, black as night, bristling with weapons that could cut fleets in half. The aliens began to worry. In one council far away, alien leaders argued among themselves. Some wanted to strike before the humans were ready. Others demanded peace. But none of them truly believed humanity could build 500,000 ships. They told themselves the numbers were wrong. They told themselves the humans were weak. On Earth, humanity said nothing. They did not argue. They did not send threats. They only worked. Day and night the shipyards thundered. Giant arms lifted cannons into place. Swarms of workers ran across the metal hulls of ships so large they blotted out the sun. Entire families lived inside the construction bays, sleeping on the floor, waking to the sound of alarms, and building without rest. One young pilot stood in line with thousands of others, waiting for assignment. He had grown up in the shadow of Earth's largest shipyard. His father had been killed in the first alien attacks years before, and his brother had vanished on a patrol near the border. Now he stood silent as officers moved down the line, handing out uniforms. His eyes did not shine with fear or excitement. They burned with something else, the cold fire of revenge. In the control chambers, admirals watched the numbers rise. 100 dreadnoughts completed, 1,000 ready, 10,000 more waiting in dry dock. The galaxy had no idea. The galaxy thought humanity was still licking its wounds. But the truth was simple. Humanity had been preparing for this day long before the colony was lost. The destruction had not stopped their plan. It had only sharpened it. The girl who had survived in the ruins of the colony would never know how her beacon changed everything. Across human space, her signal was treated like a blade against the heart. It reminded everyone that silence meant death, that peace was a lie, that only strength kept humanity alive. Her message became the fuel that drove the storm. In secret meetings, human leaders gave the final word. The dreadnought fleet would not just defend. It would not just stand guard. It would strike. Humanity would not wait for the next colony to fall. The order spread like lightning through the ranks. Prepare the armada. Across the stars, 500,000 dreadnoughts slowly came to life. Engines flared, shields powered up, weapons locked into place. They moved into formation, row after row, like walls of iron stretching into the horizon. For the first time in history, humanity had an answer for the galaxy. It was not an apology. It was not a plea. It was power, and the galaxy began to tremble. The alien commanders believed they were ready. After burning the human colony, they gathered their fleets in pride. They thought humanity would not dare to strike back. In their eyes, humans were still new to the stars, still fragile, still learning what it meant to survive among predators. Their war councils were filled with laughter. Humans are bold but weak, one alien general said. If they send a few ships, we will crush them in minutes. If they stay silent, we will finish them at our own pace. Either way, their fate is sealed. But no one truly understood what was waiting beyond the stars. In the dark, far from alien eyes, the human armada was ready. 500,000 dreadnoughts stood in perfect silence. Engines glowed softly, shields shimmered, and rows of cannons lined their hulls like teeth. It was not just a fleet. It was a wall of steel. It was a storm waiting to break. The order came from Earth. Strike. The first target was chosen carefully. A forward alien fortress, floating above a mining world, filled with ships, soldiers, and pride. It was the same faction that had burned the human colony. The humans wanted no misunderstanding. The galaxy had to see the price of touching humanity. When the aliens scanned the skies, at first they found nothing. Then shadows appeared. Dozens of human ships emerged. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Their numbers grew until the alien scanners broke under the weight of signals. A sea of dreadnoughts stretched across the stars. Alien captains shouted in panic. They tried to count, but it was hopeless. One of them whispered what no one wanted to hear. There are too many. The human fleet did not move fast. It did not need to. Its slow, steady approach was more terrifying than any sudden attack. It was like the march of death itself, calm, cold, and certain. On the bridge of the lead dreadnought, Admiral Rains stood with his hands behind his back. His face showed no smile, no joy. His voice was low when he gave the command for the lost colony. Fire! The sky erupted. The first volley from the human fleet was not just powerful, it was overwhelming. Thousands of cannons fired at once, their blasts tearing through shields, armor, and flesh. Alien ships vanished in waves of fire. Entire formations collapsed before they could even return fire. The fortress shook as beams of energy cut through its defenses. Metal melted, structures collapsed, and screams filled the communication channels. The aliens tried to answer. They launched fighters, they fired missiles, they screamed their commands. But it was useless. Their weapons scratched the hulls of the dreadnoughts like knives against mountains. For every human ship that fell, 100 alien ships were erased. The survivors began to break. Some tried to run, engines burning as they fled into the dark. But the dreadnoughts were faster than they looked. They closed the exits, blocking every escape path. The aliens were trapped. The second volley ended it. When the smoke cleared, the mining world was gone. The fortress was nothing but dust. The alien fleet no longer existed. All that remained was silence, and the cold glow of human ships standing unbroken. But humanity was not finished. The message of the battle was broadcast across every channel in the galaxy. Alien spies, merchants, and leaders all saw the same image. 500,000 dreadnoughts, standing like a wall of iron, with the ruins of an enemy fleet burning before them. The message was short and simple. This is our answer. On alien worlds, fear spread faster than fire. Generals who once laughed now stared at the recordings in silence. Rulers who had mocked humans now held emergency meetings. Citizens whispered in the streets, "The humans, they are not like us. They are something else." The galaxy began to understand a truth it had ignored. Humanity was not a fragile race reaching for the stars. Humanity was a storm, and storms did not forgive. Admiral Rains stood on the bridge, watching the wreckage drift. His officers waited for his words, but he gave none. His silence was enough. Everyone on that ship knew this was only the beginning. The dreadnought fleet turned slowly, their engines lighting the dark. Ahead of them lay more worlds, more fleets, more enemies who thought humanity could be erased. But humanity was not going to be erased. Humanity was going to be remembered, and the first blow was only the start. The smoke of the first battle still drifted across space when the galaxy began to whisper. The destruction of the alien fortress was not a rumor. It was broadcast on every channel. No one could deny what they had seen. 500,000 human dreadnoughts, moving as one, erasing an entire fleet in less than an hour. For centuries, the galaxy had seen wars. Empires had risen and fallen, planets had been burned, and races had been enslaved. But never, not once, had they seen such power gathered in silence, unleashed without mercy. On distant worlds, alien leaders gathered in secret halls. Some shouted in panic, others sat in silence, unable to speak. One ruler slammed his fist on the table, his scaled skin trembling. "This is not possible," he roared. "No species could build such a fleet, not in 1,000 years." Another leaned forward, eyes dark. "And yet the humans have done it." The councils fell into chaos. Some demanded immediate peace, others spoke of revenge. But beneath their words was something none of them wanted to admit: fear. For the first time, they were afraid of humans. Merchants carried the news faster than any warship. Traders whispered in markets, "The humans have 500,000 ships. They will burn anyone who stands in their way." Children on alien streets played games, pretending to be human dreadnoughts, shouting, "Fire! Fire!" until their parents pulled them inside with nervous looks. Even the strongest empires, the ones who had ruled the stars for ages, felt a shiver run through their bones. If humans could build such a fleet once, could they do it again? In one grand palace on the edge of the galaxy, a queen sat alone, watching the footage over and over. The sight of dreadnoughts filling the sky froze her heart. She whispered to herself, not to her guards, not to her advisors. They are not fighting for conquest. They are fighting for survival. That is why they cannot be stopped. Back on Earth, humanity watched in silence. There were no cheers, no celebrations. The faces of the lost colony still haunted every soldier, every leader. The victory was not a triumph. It was a message. A young pilot, the same one who had stood in line for his uniform, walked the halls of his dreadnought after the first battle. He passed men and women who sat in silence, their faces pale under the dim lights. They had survived, but they were not proud. They remembered the screams from the beacon, the children who never lived to see this day. Their revenge was not sweet. It was heavy, like chains around their hearts, and yet they all knew they would fight again. Alien spies risked everything to sneak into human space. They wanted to learn how humans had built so many dreadnoughts, how they had hidden them, how they had powered such a fleet. Few of those spies returned. The ones who did brought only fragments of truth. Hidden shipyards under oceans, mining operations on dead moons, entire planets turned into factories. Humanity had spent decades preparing. The galaxy began to understand. The destruction of one colony had not broken humanity. It had awoken something ancient, something terrifying, the human will to endure at any cost. In the deep void, the dreadnought fleet continued to grow. More ships joined each day. More soldiers filled the ranks. Humanity was not slowing down. It was accelerating. Alien soldiers who once laughed at humans now refused to fight them. Armies deserted. Fleets mutinied. Commanders begged their rulers to stay far from human borders. "We cannot face them," they said. "We cannot win." The surviving aliens from the first battle carried their stories back to their homeworlds. Their voices were broken, their eyes empty. They spoke of walls of steel, of endless cannons, of humans who fought without shouting, without fear, without mercy. They spoke of the silence before the first volley, a silence so heavy it felt like death itself waiting in the stars. The galaxy listened and trembled. But humanity did not chase glory. They did not march into alien capitals demanding tribute. They sent only one message across every known channel: touch humanity again, and we will burn the sky. The words spread like fire. Simple, cold, final. Every empire heard them. Every race understood. The message was not a threat. It was a promise. In the ruins of the lost colony, the young girl still wandered among the ashes. She was thin, hungry, and alone, but her eyes were sharp. She had seen the beginning, the moment her world was erased. Now, across the galaxy, others spoke her story without knowing her name. She was the spark that had lit the fire. The galaxy feared the humans, and the humans, for the first time, stood tall in the silence of that fear. The stars were quiet again, but the galaxy was not. The battle was over. The fortress was gone. The fleets that once mocked humanity were scattered into dust. Across the stars, every world now whispered the same words: "Do not touch the humans." On Earth, the news returned in silence. Screens showed the wreckage of alien ships, the burning of enemy stations, and the endless lines of dreadnoughts standing unbroken. Families gathered in their homes to watch. Some cried for those still lost. Some clenched their fists with pride, but none smiled. The victory did not erase the pain. It only gave it meaning. In a great chamber on Earth, the leaders met again. The same table that once held silence now held something heavier. They had won, but they all knew the truth. Humanity had crossed a line that could never be crossed back. One leader spoke softly. "The galaxy now fears us," an admiral answered. As they should, but another voice cut through the room. "Fear is not enough. They must remember, forever." And so the decision was made. Humanity would not chase conquest. Humanity would not spread its empire across the stars. Instead, humanity would stand as a shadow, as a warning, as a storm waiting behind the clouds. The girl from the colony, the one who had sent the beacon, was finally found by a rescue team months later. She was weak, her body covered in dust, but her eyes still burned with life. She was brought to Earth, where the leaders asked her to speak. Her voice was small at first, but clear. "I saw my world burn," she said. "I saw families torn apart. I saw children lost. I do not want revenge. I want them to know we survived. I want them to know humanity is not afraid." Her words became more powerful than the fleets themselves. They were carried to every colony, every ship, every family. People began to whisper her name as if she were more than human. She was a symbol, the reminder of why the fleet existed. The dreadnoughts continued to grow in number, but they did not invade. They did not hunt down every enemy. They waited. They stood guard, a wall of steel watching over every colony, every world, every human life. In the markets of alien worlds, merchants spoke with trembling voices. "The humans do not conquer. The humans do not enslave. But if you cross them, they will destroy you." In the halls of alien rulers, strategies changed. Armies that once looked outward now turned inward. Empires that once dreamed of war now whispered of peace. For the first time, the galaxy understood balance. But deep inside, they all feared one thing: that one day the humans might rise again, not just in defense, but in wrath. Admiral Rains stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking into the endless dark. His crew worked around him in silence, their hands steady, their eyes calm. He knew what they all knew. Humanity's greatest weapon was not the dreadnoughts. It was not the cannons or the shields. It was their will, the will to survive, the will to endure, the will to rise again, no matter the cost. He spoke quietly, more to himself than to his officers. "We are not here to conquer. We are here to remind the galaxy what it means to face humanity." The stars outside remained cold, but they no longer looked the same. Where once humanity had been seen as small, fragile and new, now they were seen as eternal. They were no longer just another race among billions. They were the storm that could not be silenced. The girl who had once hidden under a broken wall grew older. She carried the memory of her colony with her, speaking to schools, to soldiers, to leaders. Her story became the story of all humanity, from ashes to fire, from silence to strength. Generations later, when children looked up at the night sky, they did not just see stars. They saw the shapes of dreadnoughts drifting in the dark, silent guardians of their people. And the galaxy, no matter how much time passed, never forgot. They remembered the colony that was burned. They remembered the beacon that carried the truth. They remembered the 500,000 dreadnoughts that rose in answer, and they remembered the message that echoed across every star. "Touch humanity again, and we will burn the sky." The legacy was not of conquest, it was not of empire, it was of fire and the silence that followed. Humanity was no longer the young race reaching for the stars. Humanity was the storm that shaped them, and the galaxy knew it would never again test the storm.